What's up, guys? It's McNulty here. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are all doing well. Soul Exchange 2024 is here. It has arrived live and direct. We have our group of heroes, 10, 15, and 20 souls required, and we have to make up our mind. Why we have to make up our mind is beyond me. I kind of wish they would just give us one solid pick and that was it, because it makes things a lot more difficult. So we are going to have a look at these heroes today. We are going for a little bit of a deep dive today to find out which of the heroes are best. I'm going to give you my best picks from the 10 souls, 15 and the 20 souls tier, and hopefully I'll be able to help myself and you guys make up your minds. So let's get started. So we'll have a look. We'll go left to right from bottom to top. So Kleerot, as I said before in my previous hero review video, he is a terrible hero. Do not pick this guy. There is some interesting stuff that he does. So just to cap or to go over his special really quickly, it's 235% damage to all enemies. That's not great. All enemies with a dispellable mana generation buff get negative 54% mana generation for 4 turns. Now, I'm not sure how often that's going to come into effect. It certainly didn't when I was trying to use him, but it is okay giving them a negative mana generation buff and it can't be cleansed, but it is running at slow speed. So by the time he fires off, usually half of your team is dead. So it doesn't really matter that much. All enemies are immune to new status effect buffs for 4 turns. Now that has been quite a popular effect with giving immunity to new status effect buffs, especially with some of the staunch buffs that we are seeing at the moment. So he can work in a pinch, but again, his speed is so slow that he's really only going to be useful in the Rush War format. So if you need him in Rush Wars, he can kind of serve a purpose by blocking the buffs, but he's certainly not going to be able to help you take out many heroes, if any at all. So yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of Kleerot. Initial thoughts, sometimes when you look at a card, it seems a lot better than it is, and that is the case with Kleerot. You will regret it if you go for him. So from this first tier, I would steer clear of Kleerot. Now, next to him, we have my lovely little muffin girl, Matilda. She is insane. If you do not have Matilda, I would highly, highly recommend that you consider picking her from the 10 souls tier. If you've got 10 souls to trade, you will not find a better value hero out there. So the main reason she is so good is because the fiend that she gives has a effect attached to it. The effect attached to the fiend means that the target takes 50% increased damage from status ailments for 3 turns, and there's a 25% chance to refresh the duration of the status ailment with the least turns remaining. Now, this used to be a higher percentage chance. It was 50% chance, I believe, initially, but even having a 25% chance is still okay. Now, Matilda pairs up really, really well with other heroes that do damage over time. So reliant on heavy status ailments, burn damage, poison damage, etc., bleed damage. You put her alongside somebody like, for example, who am I thinking of now? Let's take Hurricane, for example. He already does a huge amount of burn damage, but just increase that by 50% over 3 turns. And you are going to be able to destroy some heroes. Even better, if you put her alongside 2 heroes that deal damage over time, she's going to increase those effects as well. And she does her own poison damage over time. Granted, it says it's only 330 poison damage over 3 turns, but with limit breaks and emblems, it gets up to 480. And then she increases that by 50% over those 3 turns. So basically, you're looking at around 750 poison damage just from Matilda, and the fiend's doing its own damage as well over time. This is a steady, slow killer of a hero, and if you pair her up with other damage over time heroes, you are going to just be able to melt teams away. Now, it is kind of good to be able to pair her up with heroes that are in the same element. So I've said before, I use her with Costume Rock. I also have Costume Rana, who I'm thinking of leveling just for the water damage, and she'll be in the same element. But she also goes very, very well with another hero, which is Costume 2 Li Zhu, because she has a chance to reverse the duration of the status ailment on that that silence effect with her as well. So she is a staunch hero, a very, very good hero. The stats are actually pretty okay. I know she's running 850 team power, but with the limit breaks and emblems, and if you do add second limit break, she benefits from the defense up ether talent, which makes her more survivable. You could rock out with this hero all day long and you will not regret it. I promise you, Matilda is an excellent, excellent pick from the first row of souls. But I already have her, so I'm not going to be picking her. If I didn't have her, I would, though. The next hero that we've got is Erebus. So I've been told that Erebus is actually a dude, despite the way that he looks. So Erebus, he is a sniper, basically. He does get the passive where he resists defense status elements, which is pretty cool because you cannot give him defense down or elemental defense down. It means that he is more survivable. Second limit breaks, you're looking at the special boost. So at the start of the battle, his special skill deals an additional 30% damage. That is good because he is a single target sniper and he can do with the additional damage. The Styx family bonus, it's a chance to cast negative mana generation to all enemies for 2 turns when they cast the special skill. It's a good family bonus, but I wouldn't just pick this hero for the family bonus. I mean, you've really got to need a sniper to want to pick Erebus. So let's have a look at what he's doing. First mana charge destroys all minions from the target and deals 520% damage to the target. Okay, that is a solid snipe for the first charge. Second charge destroys all minions from the target and deals 610% damage to the target. And now the target can't summon new minions with special skills and receives damage for each minion they attempt to summon for 3 turns. So really good counter against minions. The only problem is we've got a much better counter against minions in the same portal running at fast speed. So would you pick him just for that? Hell no. Third mana charge destroys all minions from the target, 675% damage snipe to the target, but then that's a slow speed snipe to a single target. And we've got heroes like Uwe in the game now, who can do 850% damage to a target, and they're running at slow speed and potentially chaining through all other enemies as well. So yeah, quite a bit far behind in terms of that. The target then can't summon the new minions. They get 200 damage for each minion they attempt to summon for 4 turns. I mean, it's a sniper, right? Erebus is just a sniper. There's nothing else really supreme about this hero. I mean, against minions, like I say, there are better options available. The Lunar New Year heroes, which we've had one featured in the previous Soul Exchange and one featured now, I think are a much better pick. So, but if you only have 10 souls and you're struggling to kill heroes and you need a sniper, I'd probably wait for someone else. But that being said, yeah, Erebus is just miles off of the best pick from this row. Now, next hero we have in this row is Heeros. Again, I've been told Heeros is a dude, so we'll go with that. Heeros is of the Valentine's family. So with the Valentine's or the Cupid family, solo heroes get a 20% increase for any healing received. It only gives, so that gives healing received increase to members of your team if they have no family or realm members in the team. That can be a really good bonus actually to take advantage of, because if you have, let's say you have somebody like Kleerot. Okay, he's a blue hero, and he gives a 35% heal or whatever it is. If you have Heeros on the team and no other family members, that 35% heal suddenly becomes increased by 20% on the heal, which is actually really good, and you can take advantage of it. Also, they have a passive, which is an innate resistance against status element that blocks special skills, and that can come in useful, especially against heroes that shut you down, mindless attack heroes and things like that. The attack up ether talent as well is a good one for Heeros because she does deal damage, and her special skill is pretty awesome as well. So she dispels buffs from the target at very fast speed, deals 460% damage to the target. But remember, you've got rid of all the buffs by then. And then her and the nearby allies' special skills deal an additional 40% damage for 3 turns. She is running at very fast speed, so that is the saving grace of this character, is that you are quite likely to be able to get her to fire off again within that 3-turn window. It just takes 2 blue matches, and if you have your other ice characters ready to go, or whoever's next to her, they're going to receive an increase of 40% damage on their special skills for the following 3 turns. So you really want to put her as part of an attacking team. I would say she doesn't really work as well on defense. She is pretty good on defense because of the dispel, but not even nearly as good as she is on attack. So that's where I would definitely think about putting Heeros. And I would say she's easily, for me, let's say the second best pick from this row. So if you already have Matilda and you only have 10 souls, I think you can have a lot of fun with Heeros. She's a really fantastic hero to have a play around with. So a good choice from the first row. And then on the end, we've got Sylvaria. They've really tried hard with Sylvaria. I'm not sure why, but she has received probably more buffs than any of the other heroes. Maybe it's down to this passive where she resists the minion removal. Maybe it's probably not down to the summon on burn because that's so niche. But to be honest, I wouldn't go for this hero. So she does give a defense down and then she deals damage. We are going to see that with another hero that we've got. But it's a defense down to the target nearby, and then it's damage just to the target. So she gives a negative 34% defense and then deals 380% damage to the target. Remember that. She then summons a Forest Familiar minion for all allies with 15 HP and 15 attack. It's a very paper-thin minion, and it doesn't do anything else. It is just a meat shield. If you want a meat shield, you've got Duty from the Garrison Guard, Greg, at the 4-star level. He gives you a massive one, and then summons a Mega Minion. I mean, Mega Minions are the way to go if you want a meat shield. Element Link gives all nature allies 10% attack for 4 turns. Just nothing super special. I mean, the defense down to the target nearby up front is okay, but it does mean that she's going to be heavily reliant on other heroes that you have on your team. And if you don't have any superior nature damage dealers, then it's kind of just a waste of time. Plus, there's already heroes in the nature element, a lot of heroes that give defense down. Grace is a really good one if you've got her. What's his name? Not Liu Bei. Guan Yu is another pretty good one as well, and he has like 390% damage to the target nearby. So there's a lot of heroes that are a lot better than Sylvaria in the same element and do similar things, apart from the defense down being a priority. Enough said on Sylvaria. From the first row, I would say Matilda, definitely my number 1 pick. And then a pretty close second, actually, would be Heeros. I really like this little cherub. I think he's a pretty damn good hero, actually, and I can see a lot of uses for him, and I don't have him. So I'm kind of tempted by Heeros at the moment. Now let's move on to our 15 soul tier. So now we're getting into the mid-range heroes. So we've got Nyx in here. Again, she gets that passive where she cannot be given defense down, which is actually a really good passive and can be quite frustrating. It makes them more survivable even if they do have lower stats, which she does. 854 is a bit sort of old school now. The special skill itself, though, so at the first mana charge, which is basically at slightly faster than very fast speed, so ready to go within 2 tile matches, deals 220% damage to all enemies, and all allies get 30% attack increase for 3 turns. Now that's pretty useful, and it can help you out in a pinch. If you've got other dark heroes to pair her with, I mean, we've got Guardian Panther costume, which is probably a good example. You can fire off with her, and then you can get a benefit from that additional attack increase. Fire off with Guardian Panther, even though you kind of want the other effects to be available at the same time. She's quite a good attacking hero. I wouldn't really recommend her on defense. But like I said, with her dated stats, that hit is not going to be very hard at the first charge. Now, at the second charge, we're looking at 360% damage to all enemies. So that's basically at average speed, 360% damage to all enemies. So that's a pretty hefty hit for an average speed hero. And then all enemies get negative 34% defense for 3 turns. So that is a much better special. It's a bit of a pity about the turns on the defense down. 3 turns is really not very long. If we had an extra turn, I would say that would be a pretty awesome effect for an average speed hero, but we don't. Now, she also gets the damage reduction ether talent, which again is making her more survivable. What you really want, though, is something like the Rage or the Attack Up Ether talent, something that's going to make her hit harder. You need to make her hit harder. And, there are heroes available that can do that. But again, she can't really stand in a vacuum on her own and be good. So that's a bit of a downside for Nyx. At her final charge, she deals nearly 400% damage, 395% damage to all enemies, gives a whopping 50% attack increase for 4 turns, pardon me, and a negative 44% defense for 4 turns. So the last charge, she's superb. It just takes so long to get there that by the time she does, you basically the battle's going to be over. So I wouldn't recommend Nyx, but she is pretty okay. I mean, she does have her place. And I think if you like charge heroes, there is a benefit to them not being able to have their mana decreased for the full amount on an initial hit. So that's pretty good for them as well. Now, next to her, we've got my boy Tiger Man, Tony the Tiger Lao Hu. And he is a solid choice. So we saw Zhao Tu featured in the last Soul Exchange, and they're carrying along the theme in this Soul Exchange with Lao Hu. It makes me wonder whether they are going to feature the other Lunar New heroes in the other Soul Exchanges that we've got. I'm assuming they probably will. And out of those 2 new ones, I'm not super sold on either of them. So I do think that Lao Hu and Zhao Tu are better choices with the skill that they've got and the speed that they're running at. Maybe not in terms of the stats, but otherwise they are good. Now, he is of the monk class, so he gets a chance to withstand status ailments. He gets the Lunar New Year family bonus, which gives an attack bonus to them, but it's all about this passive. So he disables all minion abilities. Attacks and abilities of minions owned by enemies are disabled. So again, like you're going up against someone like Lady of the Lake, or you're going up against Waterpipe, or you're going up against Liu Bei, or you're going up against the new costume for Dio-chan, for example, or you're going up against the new costume for or I don't think it works on Dio-chan, actually. I think I might have to eat my words on that one. But anyone with a minion that has a secondary effect attached to it, you're not going to be taking it. This does not affect Mega Minions. So against Mega Minions, this effect is null and void. But that being said, there are still a lot of minion summoners out there, and I'm sure there are still a lot to come. So if you don't have a Lunar New Year hero, I would highly recommend considering Lao Hu. I think he will be a good pick for you. Now, as far as his actual skill, his special, he deals 605% damage to the target, and he boosts his own health by 50% of the damage dealt. It's a pity it's not to everyone. It would be fantastic effect if it was, but he's kind of a selfish hero. It does make him a pretty good defensive hero, though. I can recall a couple of times where he's survived for longer than I would have liked him to. And he does become more survivable on your attacking team, which is quite important because he does have a bit dated stats in terms of the newer heroes that we're looking at. But it's all about that passive for this hero. So again, like I said, if you don't have a Lunar New Year hero, that's probably the main reason I would consider this guy. But having said that, that passive is pretty invaluable. So it will definitely help you out in wars, in raids. If you come against a team which has got Lady of the Lake or Waterpipe or some other horrible minion secondary effect on it, you're going to pop this hero in your team and you're just going to nullify that hero completely. So yeah, I do like Lao Hu. I think he's probably, I would say, one of the top picks from the second row. But then getting to this ugly mug, Barkley, he is freaking cool, man. People have talked him down a lot in the build-up for this Soul Exchange, but I love this little pug. He is a fantastic hero, and I'll tell you why. So he's got so much going for him. First of all, he is of the fighter class, which gives him the revive talent, so it means that he can come back after a fatal attack. The family bonus, it's okay. It's more about minions, and it is about fiends as well. So the fiends absorb less max health, and fiends inherit less attack for this hero that you're putting on this hero. It doesn't really, I don't think it affects the fiends that he puts on opposition, which would be nice if it did. Oh, there we go. So when the fiend is summoned to any enemy, he deals 85% damage to all enemies. That's the one. That is the one I was wanting to look at. So not only does he deal the damage that he's dealing as part of his special, because he summons fiends, he deals an extra 85% damage to all enemies. So do not forget about that. That stacks on top of his special. And when any minions summon to him, the character gains 5% health. Doesn't really work for him because he's not summoning minions. But that Wrath of Pets does affect him, and it does work really well alongside his special skill. Now, in terms of stats, Barkley actually has, aside from Costume Guardian Panther, he has the highest stats, base stats of any hero that's featured in this Soul Exchange. So that definitely is something to consider as well. And he is special. He deals 300% damage to the target and 2 random enemies. So that's a 300% damage to 3 enemies. If a target has like a taunt effect, he's going to deal all of that damage to the single target. So 900% damage. He then summons a missile fiend to hit enemies. So if the enemies hit twice, they get 2 of these missile fiends. The fiend damages the enemy with 55% attack every turn. And the missile fiend absorbs healing and disappears when it's absorbed health equal to 28% of its owner's max health. It's not a huge fiend, but it does need to be gotten rid of, because if an enemy's defeated while it has one of these fiends, nearby enemies receive 500 damage, which is a pretty hefty amount of damage. I mean, it's a flat amount, 500 damage, so it's a pretty staunch effect. And then Barkley also benefits, if you've just seen I've switched the max power preview on, he benefits from the ailment immunity ether talent, which is one of the best ether talents. At the beginning of the battle, he's immune to status ailments for 6 turns. So you have to get a dispel up before you put a status ailment on this hero at the beginning of the battle, because he's immune to them for the first 6 turns. So it makes him very staunch. Alongside the fact that he's got the fighter class talent, makes him a really good defensive option as well as an attacking one. So he's kind of a jack of all trades, I would say. Barkley is a fantastic attacking hero, and I would say he is going to take the first spot from this row, next to Lauhu. Lauhu's probably a close second. Now, Miriam and Midnight, man, oh man. As you know, I've summoned this hero back in the Halloween portal about 2 years ago when she was first brought out, and she was an absolute beast. I could not believe her special was running at average speed. But things have happened since then, nerfs have happened, and unfortunately she is not anywhere near as usable as she was. But don't believe anybody that tells you that Miriam and Midnight's trash. She's not trash. She's still a good hero. Let's have a look at her special. So her special skill, first of all, let's say the family bonus here is a mana generation increase, and it does kick in from just a single hero. So if you have 2 or 3 of these family of heroes, the Morlovia family, you can get anywhere up to a 9% increased mana generation. So that is awesome. With 2 heroes, you're giving yourself as much as a bard bonus for the mana generation, which is also awesome. And with the introduction of the legendary troops, that mana bonus becomes all the more important until they start taking those level 30 troops up to levels 40 and 50, which we probably will see in the future. For now, their mana just doesn't cut it, so you need somebody to boost the mana. And Miriam and Midnight will be able to do that for herself and any other members of the Morlovia family. So remember that. Her passive skill. So when she casts her special, she has a 50% chance to steal the newest dispellable buff from a random enemy that has buffs. And if no enemy has buffs, they get 70% damage to all enemies. So it's kind of similar to what we looked at with Barkley, just a slightly lower amount of damage. The defense up ether talent, really, really good one. So at the start of the battle, she gets extra defense for 6 turns, and that's important because she is a support hero and a healer. Now, in terms of the special skill, she summons a blue kitten minion. It's just for the caster and nearby allies, and this minion inherits 30% HP and 30% attack from the caster. The minion recovers 22% health for its owner at the end of each turn. So it's a health recovery over time. for her and the nearby allies, which is attached to the minion. And the blue kitten minion lifts the newest cleansable status ailment from its owner and adds it to the hit target. So it's not just a heal over time, it's also a cleanse. It's not just a cleanse, but it's also lifting the ailment and giving it to the opposition. And the caster and nearby allies get plus 50% attack for 3 turns. Okay, there are limitations to this hero in terms of the fact that she is just caster and nearby, but I'll tell you who she works really, really well with, and that is my boy Pengi. Pengi and Miriam Midnight make a fantastic pair. If you do have him, it's probably worth considering Miriam and Midnight because of that healing effect, but also the minions that are going up and also the attack increase. A lot of people forget about the attack increase, increasing the attack by 50% with Pengi on the left-hand side or right-hand side, or maybe 2 Pengis on either side, can do some amazing things. And I use her alongside Pengi and Costume 2 Magni. So Magni gives the defense down against special skills. Miriam at Midnight's there for a bit of protection. And then on her left-hand side, I put Pengi. And Pengi's there to just whack, just to kill some mofos right after that happens. So there are definite ways to use Miriam at Midnight. I don't think she's a trash hero, but I certainly don't think that she's the best hero in this pool. So yeah, then the last hero that we've got in the 15 soul tier is going to be Queen Anne. So Queen Anne is a pretty cool hero. I mean, there's a lot of love for Queen Anne actually on the forums and things like that. She is unfortunately running at slow speed, but let's have a quick look over what she does. So the caster gets taunt. It lasts for 6 turns. That's a long time. The only other hero that has a 6-turn taunt, I believe, is Ludwig. Maybe there's 1 or 2 others. I don't know how long Thunderclaps one is or Ryan Goes one is, just off the top of my head. But 6 turns is a long time. And then she regenerates her own health. So her taunt, and she's protecting herself at the same time as she's giving taunt, makes her very, very survivable. She also then gives all allies 65% defense increase for 6 turns. So there's a secondary effect now above and beyond the taunt. So the taunt has to be dispelled, and then the defense up has to be dispelled after that as well. So it makes it a lot more difficult to kill or to deal with Queen Anne once she goes off. And then all allies get 44% increase on their mana generation for 6 turns. The only downside to this hero is that she is running at slow speed, but once she fires off, she is a fantastic protector, and she's increasing the mana generation of all of your allies on the opposition team by 44%. That can have a humongous effect on the allies on your team. You cannot get her up to sort of full mana with like a bard bonus from a bard hero where she charges off in 3 tiles. So that is kind of a minor downside to Queen Anne, but everything else she's got going for her is fantastic. So you are going to be looking for those 12 tiles for what feels like an eternity. That is the problem. But then she also does benefit from the alpha taunt, which is fantastic because it's an auto taunt at the beginning of the battle for 3 turns. So it kind of gives you 3 turns to be able to get as close as possible to that target that you need. But the problem is she is going to be your protector as well. So if somebody else fires off and kills her after that auto taunt or while that auto taunt is up, then you're pretty much screwed. But if you get her off, you're going to find the battle is much easier from that point onwards because you've defended your whole team. You've got 2 dispellable effects, which you can, well, it's not that easy to get rid of. And then you've got that all-important 44% mana generation increase for the following 6 turns, which is huge. And honestly, looking at her now, I'm very much considering Queen Anne as well. She's a superb contender. I mean, there are some really, really good heroes in here, especially at the 15 soul tier. So I think I'm just going to say you couldn't go wrong at the 15 soul tier if you picked either Queen Anne or Barkley or Lao Hu. I think they're all awesome. I mean, in ratings wise, I'm going to go Barkley just because I love Barkley. He looks insane. I'll put him at number 1. And we'll put Queen Anne and Lao Hu as a tie for second. That's the best I can do with that row. Now, into the big boy tiers, right? 20 heroes are required to trade for this tier of souls, And 20 heroes is a lot of heroes. It does require some summoning. It's more than likely you're probably either a cheap to play or pay to play player. You're definitely spending some money on the game if you can afford the 20 soul hero every time. Now, that being said, these heroes need to be really, really good, because 20 heroes, 20 legendary heroes, not that easy to come by in a 3-month period. Now, first off, we have Guardian Panther. Guardian Panther costume does get a huge bonus. So the costume bonus and attack bonus 20%, defense 25%, health 40%, and 5% on the mana. And that makes her easily the most powerful hero in here. So you can see with the costume bonus, we're at 958 team power. I said Barkley was the next closest. He's at 879. And if you look at all of these other heroes here, 864, 851. Oh, sorry, Jekken would actually be the most powerful, 895. But with the costume bonus, Guardian Panther is holding her own in terms of where you want the stats to be. And that alone is a good reason for you to pick her. Now, her special skill deals 285% damage to all enemies. Running at fast speed, that is a good solid hit. I mean, we see a lot of others which are at the 220, 250 mark. It doesn't really feel like quite as much, but 285 is decent. With an attack stat of nearly 1,000, it does do some pretty serious damage, maybe about 500 to 600 damage. All enemies then get negative 34% defense against dark for 3 turns. Now, this is my big problem with Guardian Panther. They have nerfed this effect into oblivion. If you just look back over the balance updates, they reduced the defense down, the elemental defense down, then they reduced it again not long after that. And I think they may have even reduced it a third time, but it's now down to 34% defense against dark. And at that amount, that low amount, there's other heroes that I would want to take. I'd probably even take Sergei, because his is like 56% defense against dark, and that makes a huge difference. So if she was back as the old Guardian Panther costume, dealing like at least 50% elemental defense down against dark, then I would say, yeah, 100%. But that's throwing me off. That 34% defense against dark is definitely throwing me off as far as Guardian Panther is concerned. That is not to say I don't think she's a really good hero. She can pair up really well with either herself or other purple damage dealers, but she's just not as good as she was on her initial release. And I hate it when they nerf heroes like this. So yeah, that's kind of putting me off of her. And then she gives all enemies immunity to new status effect buffs for 3 turns. So there are other heroes that can do what she can do, but you need more than one hero to be able to do the same effect. So you can give the elemental defense down with somebody like Sergei. You can get element immunity or buff immunity with somebody like Costume Sabina at the 4-star level, but you can't get the same stats with those heroes, and you can't get the team-wide damage with those heroes. So Guardian Panther kind of is a best of both worlds type of hero. And also her regular costume, she gets the Dispel. Granted, it is only from the target nearby, so that's a bit of a problem, but the defense down against dark is higher. So I'm just thinking, the possibilities of potentially looking at costume Guardian Panther and the regular Guardian Panther together, but then you are losing out on that hit all, which is, on this one, it's only 210 damage to the target nearby. This one, it's 285 to all enemies. So there's a lot of good points for Guardian Panther, but there are some negatives as well, unfortunately. So yeah, I mean, she's a really, really good option. And if you don't have an elemental defense down in dark, I would pick her right away. But then you've got her available from the Soul Exchange. Or if you just want somebody who can keep the pace with the stats of the heroes, and your main concern is keeping your stats high because your heroes are dying too easily, then I would say that Guardian Panther is probably going to be your best choice from all of these heroes. Now, next to her, we have Jaquan. The holy elemental dude with the amazing hair. He is a kind of weird hero. So 200% damage to all enemies at very fast speed seems good to start off with. And then you get this mishmash of various ailments, which, like I've said before in a previous video, those ailments can be cleared off. They can be cleansed with just a single cleanse, and they can be cleansed pretty easily. So the fact that there's so much going on against so much different elements doesn't really make him that good. It would be better if you just gave a single element or a single ailment, sorry, and then gave some other kind of secondary effect, whether it was a defense up against special skills or a reflect or something. But he is just lacking. Unfortunately, I really don't think. And as I've said before, going up against him on defense, he's not a scary hero to go up on defensively or against defensively. I'd much rather go up against him than somebody like Barkley that we've just looked at, or even Queen Anne, even though she's running at slow speed. I'd much rather go up against Jekwan. Even the Tiger, I'd rather go up against than him. So, yeah, he's probably, I would say, I'm going to say he's probably my least favorite hero from this last row of heroes with 20 souls. Sorry, man. Now, this chickie. Wow. Okay. There's a lot to talk about with Fexa. I'll try and keep it as short as possible. She's an insanely good hero because obviously she is a bard and she gets the family bonus where solo heroes get 5% increase on their mana generation. And that works really, really well, especially with the advent of the legendary troops. And the other thing is, she can get heroes like Khufu to fire off within 9 tiles. Now, who would not want an average speed Khufu? I don't think there's anybody who wouldn't want an average speed Khufu. There are other heroes she can get to charge within 9 tiles as well, and you can have fun to your heart's content playing around with them. But to me, I think that's probably her best use case, is alongside him. Now, this passive revival chance reduction. So the chance of revival is reduced for all enemies in the battle. The chance is 20% of the original value. So if you get a revival hero like Mother North, say, with 50%, I think on her costume it's 55% revival, she's pretty much bringing everybody back, 90% of the time. It feels like she's bringing at least one of those team members back. But then you put her against somebody like Heimdall, not the costume Heimdall, the regular Heimdall. Some people don't have Mother North and then they use Heimdall. He doesn't really bring many people back. If he does bring somebody back, it's a surprise. Now, she's basically kneecapping Mother North to the same kind of level as somebody like Heimdall. I'm saying, these heroes are not quite as well as seen quite as often as we did see them, maybe a year ago. So now, but you've got heroes like Lysanor, who is doing like a revive effect, and you've got other heroes with revive effects as well, and it's not going away in the game. But Fexa is a fantastic tool to bring against that kind of team, and it's just an added bonus that kind of gives you a bit of a surprise when it does kick off. So far, so good. In terms of stats, right, 869 on the team power is not very high. So she, I think, from the bottom row is one of the least powerful heroes on her own. But that being said, her main reason is as a healer. So the main purpose of her is as a healer. And with healers, they heal by a percentage of the ally's health, which means that it doesn't really matter if they're a little bit less sort of stat heavy, because we can add limit breaks and we can add emblems. And you can see that if you do add second limit breaks to Fexa, she actually gets the defense up ether talent, which means that even though it says 1152 here on her defense, when she starts off the battle, she's going to have an extra 20% on top of that stat for the first 6 turns. So she's going to have about 1400 defense if you do second limit break. And at 1400 defense, then it makes her a viable hero and a survivable hero. And it means that you're much more likely to be able to get her effect, her special skill off. So that really, really does make a massive difference for Fexa. And I would definitely recommend using emblems. I'm using alpha ethers on this hero if you do take her from the soul exchange. So she recovers 42% health for all allies. That's a nice meaty heal. And then she resets the duration of buffs for all allies. Now, in the fire element, you've got Zabog, who's a 4-star hero from the Bard family, who can refresh the duration of status ailments. And then you've got Fexa, who's also of the Bard family, who can refresh the duration of buffs. So if you did take this hero, you kind of got the best of both worlds there. And I can see you having some pretty awesome fun pitting this hero alongside other heroes that do amazing buffs. So, I mean, just one that's come to mind is Guardian Hippo. So if you fire off Guardian Hippo, you fire off her effect 2 turns later, you're taking advantage of Guardian Hippo's effect, and then you're refreshing the duration of that effect for another 3 turns. I mean, it's just a fun hero to play around with. And what is this game about if it's not about fun? That's what it's all about, honestly. And I cannot see myself having too much more fun than playing around with a hero like Fexa. Just with that effect, it seems amazing. But that's not all she does. So she also gives all allies 30% critical chance for 4 turns, 30% chance to deal double damage. That's okay. That's heck of an okay. I mean, it's not going to go, it's not something that you're going to rely on, but it is going to help you increase your tile damage. And I do find that nowadays, if you want to save yourself from attacking mono, and you want to go 4-1 or 3-1, with some of the power of these heroes, you really need that additional chance, that critical chance, to help you to put together heroes with teams with 3 or 4 heroes instead of like a whole mono team, which is never a great idea. And then all allies also get plus 50% attack for 4 turns. Now, we just looked at a hero that does the attack up 50%, which was Nyx, and it takes her forever to give all allies that 50% attack for 4 turns. So in terms of the value of that effect running at average speed and potentially even faster with the Bard bonus, I mean, yeah, she's a fantastic hero and an excellent, excellent choice from this row of heroes. I don't want to say too much more on Fexa, but yeah, she's fantastic, and I cannot see many downsides to her at all, except for the stats. That's the only downside that I can see. But heroes get buffed and nerfed left, right, and center. In fact, I think that there is going to need to be more balance coming through in the future for certain older heroes. And there's no reason to believe that Fexa won't be next in line or one of the next in line. You just never know, honestly. I would base it more on the hero's skills than I would on the stats in Fexa's case. Now, moving on to Tinsel. Right, so Tinsel is a freaking cool hero. I've always loved her since she came out. She deals a decent amount of damage to the target nearby. 340% at fast speed is a lot of damage. And she summons the elf minion from the caster and nearby allies, which is kind of a minor thing. But then she gives the target nearby a negative defense, which is based on the amount of ice shields on the board, up to 54% defense down, which is huge. And she gives negative accuracy. So like I said before with Jekan, or Jaquan, where he is giving like those weird those weird ailments based on the element of the heroes. With Tinsel, she's actually giving 2 ailments in one. She's giving a negative defense and she's giving the negative accuracy. So think about her as you would some of the Goblins family heroes, where they have that passive, which is negative accuracy. She doesn't have the passive, but she does give it as part of her special skill, and it can get up to 50% decreased accuracy. Granted, you need a bunch of ice shields on the board for that to trigger, but that being said, she is a cool hero. Now, the other cool thing about Tinsel, which is another reason why I think a lot of people may pick her from this soul exchange, is that she actually triggers off the defense down where the status effect is removed from heroes like Starwalker and Pop Hit. She is going to be able to trigger that ailment. Now, I'm not sure if that is a error, or if that's the way that they intended this to work. But at the moment, at the time of recording, it is working like that. So Tinsel can trigger that effect off, but if you do get her, there's no guarantee that they don't correct that in the next coming weeks or months and say, actually, you know what, we made a mistake, and then everybody's up in arms because they picked Tinsel. So just err on the side of caution with that. If you're going to pick her, I would pick her because she deals a decent amount of damage and gives the defense down and reduced accuracy, which is an awesome effect. I wouldn't necessarily pick her because she gives that triggers off that secondary ailment, unless you are not going to be unhappy if that does get taken away in the future. So I hope that all makes sense, but that's probably a big reason why I think a lot of people are going to be going for Tinsel. And then the last hero that we have in this portal is my man, the Green Knight. Green Knight, a lot of hype upon his release. A really interesting looking special skill which we hadn't seen the likes of before. and a kind of a big flop, unfortunately, because he's just not that difficult to deal with. And I don't know why. I really don't know why. He should be awesome. I mean, let's just take a look at what he does. So he is of the fighter class, so he gets the revived talent as well. Special skill. All enemies get negative 24% defense for 3 turns. Very, very low defense down, but it is a priority defense down. And then he deals 265% damage to all enemies. That's a good amount of damage to all enemies. It's a really, really good amount of damage to all enemies. Plus, you got that defense down. So it should feel like you've just been hit like a freaking truck. But in the world of guys like Timaeus and the owls and the goblins, it really doesn't. It feels like you've just been like slapped around the face a little bit, but nothing worse than that. And if the caster is defeated during the next 5 turns, which is a long time, they're resurrected in the beginning of their next turn with 45% health, and 765 damage is dealt to all enemies. That should be like a team destroying special. Like, it should just trigger off and you should be like, oh my goodness, I didn't know he was going to revive and then kill my whole team. Like, what the heck is going on with this guy? The problem is, though, is everybody knows it's going to happen. And there's so many heroes that will block buffs nowadays that you can just sort of throw that on him, kill him, and not have to worry about it. So he's got some really good hard counters, and he is just not as good as he was supposed to be. That being said, I still think that you would have a lot of fun with Green Knight if you did pick him, and I think he is a fun hero to play around with on attack. I don't think he's going to help you that much on defense, though, unfortunately. So, with that being said, though, the majority of these heroes are not great defensive heroes, with the exception of probably Queen Anne. There's nobody else that I would say will go super well on a defensive team. Maybe Matilda, actually. Matilda can be used really well on defense. I played her on my defense for ages. But, not a huge amount of defensive heroes, more attacking options. Even in Fexa that we just looked at, she is a healer, but I would say that she's like a million times better on attack than she is on defense, because you can kind of plan things around her. Right, so it is time for my choice. We have gone over the list of heroes. Just to recap very quickly, from the first soul, my pick is Matilda. She's fantastic for 10 souls. If you've only got 10 souls and you don't have her, I would really recommend getting her. And then second would be Heeros. Third place would be Erebus. And then Dogwater will be, fourth place Sylvaria, and Dogwater will be Kleerot. From the second row of 15 heroes, I'm going to give the gold star to Barkley. I just cannot not give it to him. He's got fantastic effects all around. So he's a good pick and a fantastic ether talent and class. Second, I will say Queen Anne. She has an awesome array of effects and a really good supportive hero. But she is running at slow speed, so bear that in mind. And then Lao Hu, a close third. Miriam and I've got to put Miriam Midnight and Nyx. I've got to put Nyx first. Man, I didn't think I'd have to do that. But yeah, Nyx is better than Miriam and Midnight, unfortunately, unless you have a couple of Pengies going spare. And then the final row of 20 heroes required. A lot more roster dependent. I'm going to say last place will be Jekken, bringing up the rear in 5th spot. In 4th place, it's going to be Tinsel. With that effect aside, I would say that I've got to put her there in 4th place. 3rd place is going to be Green Knight. He would be a pretty good pick and fun to play around with, and a decent amount of damage. Really cool after effect. Like, there's nothing, when you read over this guy's card, there's nothing that tells you that he's not the greatest hero. But when you start playing around with him, especially on putting him on your defensive team, you'll see you do get one shot a lot more often than you'd like. So yeah, that's the only sort of slight downside for him. And then in top spot, I think it's really, really roster dependent and on what you need. Between Guardian Panther, if you're the kind of person that you just want to make sure that you can compete based on stats, Guardian Panther is your girl. And if you are anything like me and you just like heroes that are going to be sort of able to stand the test of time, and you're going to be able to find new and exciting ways to pair these heroes up with other heroes on your team and get more damage out of those heroes and reset the buffs on the heroes and get that Khufu that's going to fire off in 9 tiles. That's my main reason for picking for Fenexa, because I just want to have fun with an average speed Khufu. I've been waiting for ages for a bard in the same element, and Fenexa fits the role perfectly for me. So that is going to be my personal choice. I hope that this video has helped you a little bit to make up your mind. And yeah, without any further ado, let's get into it. We shall exchange all of these no good heroes for Fenexa, the Bard of Whispers. Am I ready? Can't be undone. Yeah, let's do it. Boom. There we go. Fenexa is mine. And I'm really happy about that choice, honestly. Yeah, so please let me know in the comments what you guys decided to do in your soul exchange. I hope, again, like I said, that this video has been helpful and it's helped you a little bit to try and make up your mind as to which hero you should choose. Please do drop us a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss any future updates. There is a lot going on in Empires and Puzzles land, so I'll try to keep you guys abreast of all of it. There are memberships available on the channel as well, so please do check those out. And as always, I wish you guys all of the very best in the future, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye for now.